Welcome back to the Briefcase in this Barn.
You're good. You're
Episode
good.
21.
Who learned you how to spoke? None, buddy? Episode 21.
A series of the Furious Curious show with me and Gary, where we talk about anything and everything. Welcome back to the non-segment version of the show.
A lot of dialogue about it. A lot of feedback. Drives you crazy, man. You feel so attacked and threatened, or no?
I don't. No, the biggest thing is I don't understand it, because I went back and listened to a full episode of, which I've never done before, but I listened to a podcast that said, if you want to make your podcast better, listen back to it. So I was like, okay, I'll listen back to him. And I wanted to know the difference between the two styles. So I listened back to the one before we did the segments, when I still had notes, like Proverb of the Week and
all the stuff,
all the stuff and stuff like that. But it wasn't like,
oh, we got to get to the next segment. Let's talk about the next segment we're going
whatever.
into. Yeah.
And then I did the segments, and so I didn't really notice a big difference. But the polls I did was pretty drastically, like, people were like, no segments. It was like 85%.
It's because of the type of personalities that are listening to our podcast, right?
They're just all spazzes.
Oh, they're ADHD. They're just totally whacked. Yeah. Quick, more dopamine. Shorter, right? I always get the feedback, like, it's fine if it's long, if it's flowing, but like, it's fine if it's really short too, because I was talking to a guy this morning who was listening, and he was, bite-sized pieces, not too much, right? The kids nowadays watch everything in 20-second clips?
Yeah, even shorter.
Okay.
I make the reels with right now.
Okay.
Together, and I was talk about with him, like, the first 3 seconds. If you don't have someone's attention in the first 3 seconds,
makes sense, because swipe. My wife in 25 minutes on Instagram at night will scroll through at least 7,000 reels.
Yeah.
And I just have to hear the first annoying screeching lady's voice
and then
about her newest multi-level marketing scheme that she's a part of, and parenting tip, and how her husband's a turd. No, I find it really interesting. I've never been in the reel section on Instagram, and I'm on Instagram lots. Not that I'm not on there, because I do post stuff, but I more listen. Like, I actually will engage in a podcast or listen to a book. And
because you drive a bunch, right?
I do. And that's probably the main reason, because really I don't have a long attention span. And any book I listen to, I'm listening at 1.2 to 1.5, depending on how fast.
I drove for Surrey yesterday to get my passport renewed. Okay. And so I barely drive long distances anymore. I hate traffic.
It's horrible. Everybody hates it. I don't know how people do that for a living, drive into work every day.
But I did listen to a bunch of podcasts, otherwise I would never have listened to.
Okay. So. Your own, or?
I know.
Okay.
There was that Boom Clap podcast.
Yeah.
Listened to part of that one.
Cecily and Dickie and her friend. Yeah.
Yeah. And then there was another one I can't remember now.
How do you feel more judgmental listening to other people's podcasts now that you've been doing one for quite a few years, or just it is what it is? You're more gracious.
I do listen to, like, how direct the hosts are with their questioning and stuff like that, or if they're leaving, like, information on the table because they're not sure if they should ask the question or not. And I think the best interviewers go for the jugular, like, they ask the uncomfortable questions.
Do you think the best podcasts are people asking a host asking another person questions, or just random dialogue?
I think it really depends on the subject matter and stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah. But I am excited to, like, I have 4 lined up now for the regular Furious Curious show episodes, and I am looking forward to.
Did you get a hold of my friend that I had dinner with on Saturday night, Joan?
Yeah.
Is she going to do it?
I have a call with her tomorrow.
Definitely do the podcast with her.
Yeah. That'll be interesting, because she's 86, you said?
Yeah, 86.
Yeah, so that'll be fun.
And she might have a filter when she's here, but as long as she can't see the audience, she'll have no clue, and she's not going to listen to it ahead of time, because she's not that tech savvy at 86.
That's the best.
She's a beautiful lady. I'm looking forward to hearing you ask her questions.
So why did you think I should interview her? Just for the audience, so they know?
I think she could articulate a lot of things that I think and feel about fostering and parenting and just doing life. Like, she's an amazing Christian lady, and I think she could articulate it better than I could. And because of her age, once you're that age, like, you can get away with saying a lot of things. Like, I told her she should run for office, right?
I can't
we
wait.
were sitting, she was just beaking off. I'm like, whoa. And her husband's sitting there ducking for cover, right?
I always dreamed of being in like a 5-year-old and then having, like, the brain of a 20-year-old. Because she could get away with so much.
Yeah. Well, and some kids, are really blunt, but no, she's a good lady. So
okay, let's get into some stuff. So me and Gary.
How was your week?
Yeah, it's a pretty good week. A few more guys I'm coaching. Excited about that.
Do you have a bunch coming to an end, or?
No, a lot of them go to maintenance coaching.
Okay.
Yeah, keep going on the maintenance program. A couple guys I'm doing a CEO and a COO together, group coaching.
Okay.
So that's cool.
At the same time, you'll always be interviewing them and talking to them at the same time? Or?
I talk to them both individually as well and as a group, which is, it's fun.
Okay. Be healthy for them. A lot of people that work in business relationships could use that piece. Any family farm could use somebody walking alongside. Yeah. Because it is hard.
And I just tell them there's no secrets. Like,
right up front. If I hear something,
I'm not keeping secrets from, like, I'm not going to be this middleman that's like, you share something you don't like.
Go see your counselor for that. Like, this is, everything's getting shared with the other person because we're going to deal with stuff. Yeah. Okay. And obviously they're relatively healthy, even just to, I mean, that's the issue, right? People that are really unhealthy would never even agree to do that. Like, people are typically smart enough to know what they're kind of getting into. Like,
I guess it's more on the topics of like, related to each other or related to the business. If they're telling me something personally about their personal life and stuff like that, I'm not unintentionally just kind of go share that.
Totally.
And stuff like that. So,
but if it relates directly to the stuff they're dealing with.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. So excited about that. Bunch more podcasts coming up. Excited about that. Got to sell the overtime more because I got my bill last week for editing. And it was last month. It was $2,500.
Okay. He's doing some good editing.
Yeah. But it's going to be less now that I don't need to do the segments because he did different backgrounds. So that was the one plus.
Another win.
So thank you for voting that one.
Yeah, No, I can't. Well, the segments always make me feel like, oh, this is school. We're moving on to the next section. And it's like, no, like I come here just to be unhinged, right? Like if we just do an introduction the whole time and then, hey, you know what? We've talked long enough. So now people are sick of listening to us. Hey, we're ending.
Yeah, 30-minute introduction.
We're getting there.
We're at 8 minutes.
So, I sent I put quite a bit of stuff in the notes talking about,
so
but we don't need to talk about it.
Me, Gary, and Ryan have a shared notes thing where we're just throwing stuff in there. So the first one that I see there is, it's hard, lonely, unappreciated by kids.
That's what I wrote. That was about being a mother. There's a few. No, it's not me. I don't feel unappreciated. I'm a rock star at home. It's not fair. It's not fair. Women do all the hard work. And all, as a general rule, I'm generalizing now. Most moms, especially in my world, where
we're going to add a bunch more followers just to start that reel. Women do all the work. Like,
women do all the work. They do all the work at home as a general rule, and get none of the praise and the thanks. And my kids love their mother, but like, they don't respond the same way when my wife walks in the door as when I walk in the door, right? It's like I get the king's greeting and like all the kids come running and give me a big hug, especially the littles. The smaller they are, the more pumped they are. And
I will say,
it's pretty thankless. What I'm trying to say is, and women are comparing, because especially, it's probably worse because of social media. Now I'm talking on behalf of women. I'm for sure going to get dumped on. But like, it's human nature to compare, and you see people, how they're living and how they're interacting. And women, some seem very fulfilled because they're, living a certain way and having a career and doing these things. And it's like, just like a man's primary role is still his home, even though it's less obvious because he's obviously working the bulk of the day. It's obviously that way for a woman, and it's so integral to raising healthy children and having a healthy society, which is a big part of the reason I would argue that we are.
I think long term it's more fulfilling as well. Like, they've done studies on this as well. Like, I think it's when society as a whole is giving you all this information that, hey, you need to have a career, you need to be working, you need to do X, Y, Z. Like, it's going to be hard not to start believing some of those messages and then start feeling discontent.
Well, no different than a guy. Like, your kids are not that appreciative. Like, you feed them and then they only eat half the food and they whine about, the type of jam you used and the crust was burnt. And then it's like the next meal, and then they want a snack, and they want a snack at our house every 20 minutes. And like, it's a perpetual job of like just cleaning up, feeding for Marie. And it's just like, I could see
it's training.
I really said it to her last night, but it's just like, it feels pretty like a thankless task, and she's doing an amazing job. And I think most women are, but they're not dialoguing enough together.
Why do you think most women are doing an amazing job?
Because most women in my life that I know are really trying to be caring moms and faithful moms and good moms to their kids. And they are not getting positive. Like, they're not sharing that openly because I think it's probably harder for a lot of people to be open than it would be for you and I. And when you're not open and vulnerable, you won't get the feedback that you actually need. It's only by actually being real. But everybody assumes everyone else is doing fine. They always assume every other mom's just got it all together.
Yeah, one thing I have noticed is how lonely it is for moms. Like, they don't, there's not, from what I can see,
dads, but
they don't interact with, the same thing.
Yeah.
They don't interact with each other much. And so, yeah, then you do start thinking, like, even when you were just saying your kids are bitching about like the jam and the crust and stuff like that, I'm like, oh yeah, of course. Like everyone has this, because I definitely have it with my kids as well.
Yeah. But if it's every time, every day, sorry, what were you going to say?
I did have it though. Last night we went out for dinner to Buzzini's.
Okay.
Someone gifted us a dinner, which was super awesome.
Nice.
And usually when we're waiting for the food, is just like, I'd like have anxiety. I'm just like, can't stand that and stuff like that. But it'd been a while since we went out for dinner. And me and Nicole were just I kind of said to myself, I was like, no, I'm just going to enjoy this. Like
the whole point, even the waiting.
Yeah. Enjoy, like make something good out of it. Like, cause your perspective really matters. And so me and Nicole were just in a good spot and we were chatting, having fun. And then the kids were also doing really good.
Not fighting savages, not throwing stuff at people behind them.
And I was thinking about it later, and I think kids feed off of their parents' energy. And so much of like, if the parents are like wound up and like, getting frustrated as soon as they stand up once on the seat in the restaurant, stuff like that, then you're going to have like kids that are, going nuts. And so it just reminded me of how much of our kids' behavior and how they show up depends on how the parent is showing up and how calm they are and joyful.
Definitely parents that are fearful and tend to be fear-based and live in fear. You definitely see that in kids. You see kids that are like, oh, wow, they're scared, right? And of course, there's a balance there, right? I mean, anxious, yeah. It's like, oh, wow. So you set the tone. And that's why when people are struggling, it's pretty important that to some degree you protect your children from that, because they're not fit to, they can't sort, they don't have the brain to sort through that anxiety and decipher, hey, this is my parent stuff, or this is what I need to carry, right? They just, like you say, they just kind of...
It did get hard at the end because we had to wait 55 minutes for our meal.
Okay.
Me and Nicole did.
But was it good food?
6 out of 10.
It's really funny. So
I'd rather eat at home.
Okay. Well, my wife, like Buzzini's, not her favorite restaurant.
Oh, did I say the name? Shit. I thanked them later and I didn't give them crap. I think they were just really busy.
Anyways, my wife struggles, forget the name of the restaurant, struggles with any restaurant that has like 75,000 things on the menu. She's like, you can't be that good at everything.
Yes,
like, just pick a lane. Like when you cover all food types.
That's good business advice too.
Yeah. Focus. Her husband has not followed that advice yet. But anyways.
So she doesn't like going there.
We have never went there in a decade, probably in 10 years. And I mean, it's probably, anyways, we just have our places that we go to. Okay. We go out less and less all the time.
Okay, before we're at like an hour here, let's go to...
We're not going to go on too long. It's going to be a short podcast.
To Killjoys so we can keep going on
this series. Oh, got to do the book review.
Yeah. Did you read the chapter?
Well, back when it was a segment, you would just find out who skipped it. Now we won't know that anymore. Was the chapter on...
Greed.
Yes, I did read it. Very convicting. Great chapter.
Okay, why was it convicting?
Because I'm pretty greedy.
Okay.
Yeah. If I had to describe my personality in a joking way, in a negative way, I would say I'm perpetually discontent.
What way are you pretty greedy? Like greedy with money? Greedy with what? Don't look for the book. Just answer the question.
Well, man, I underlined a lot of stuff. One of the things I wrote, a question. Oh yeah, I found it interesting. Greed plagues the prodigal and the penny pincher alike. I wrote, how much is enough? How much is enough? A little bit more. Just a little bit more.
Do you, I've heard it said quite often and read it as well, that the more someone starts making, or the more successful they become, the more greedy they become. And I kind of noticed it myself a little bit. Like when I was not making that much, I would always give my...
Proportionally, you were giving...
10% to the church, whatever. And then when I would start making way more, I didn't.
Do you do that no matter how tight you are? Or how disciplined are you in...
I'm not that disciplined on it now. Okay. Now it's a lot more all over the place. Okay. But before it was just like, it was like before tax, I would give my...
Okay.
My tithe. Okay. But I read Randy Alcorn's book, Money, Possessions, and Eternity.
Oh, we should write that one down. Okay.
Randy Alcorn, Money, Possessions, and Eternity.
Good book.
Very good book. Yeah. It's a really big one. It also has a shorter version of that called The Treasury Principle. If you like shorter books, and it kind of gives you a summarized version of that. Okay. Talks about how to think about money as a Christian. Yeah. Anyways, my earlier question: do you think that the more someone has, the richer they become, the more greedy they become?
Probably as a general rule, yes.
Why is that? It's kind of counterintuitive.
Yeah. I think because one of my favorite sayings is everything you own owns a little piece of you. And it's perpetual. Like, you know, if you, like I used to drive a $2,000 Jetta diesel beater for years and years. Even when I was worth quite a bit of money, I always drove a beater car. And at one point I even got made fun of by customers in a negative way. They would just be like, hey, it's unprofessional. Yeah. You know, you look like a total tool. Like everyone knows you can afford a nicer vehicle. Just buy it. You don't have to buy a fancy truck, buy a mediocre truck. But I got into this horrible habit of like perpetually, and I mean, everyone that has this heart, and it won't, this is the problem with talking about greed in the sense of possessions or money. It's not just that. Like you might be greedy in the sense of, you know, you might struggle with the area of just wanting comfort and safety and just that little bit of savings in your bank and just not trusting God with just, you know, how much do you need in savings?
Like, you can be broke and greedy.
Yeah, you could definitely be broke and greedy. And I will say this carefully, highly unlikely you will be blessed with great riches from what I have experienced in my life until you let go of the little bit that you have.
Yeah, I would disagree with that.
You would disagree with that. Well, that's been my experience.
Well, just think about how many rich, super wealthy people you know that aren't Christians because they've given their whole life to their work.
To making money. Fair enough. But I'm saying I know a lot of really, really generous Christians. And I'm actually really fortunate. I mean, but I could rattle off 50 to 100 people that I know that are very wealthy that give away a lot.
Because you're a generous Christian that goes to events with other generous Christians.
Okay.
I think you're surrounded, like you get to interact and meet with those people. And generally, generous Christians are not people that flaunt it and talk about how much they're giving.
No, actually, to be fair, that's actually an interesting point because somebody just mentioned somebody's name the other day, a guy that I hang out with, and I would have never known he was the most generous person around. And one of his family members just quietly said it to me. They were just like, oh, wow, this guy that supported this cause. No, he never talks about it. So, yeah.
I think it's more just like in business, like your business is at a certain size and you just like have to have more. You have to grow. You have to push.
It's tough though. Even as a business owner, it's like, okay, how much, when is the business big enough? Or in my case, it's like, do I need to do all these things? Could I just spend like, and that's where there's no cookie cutter answer.
Are you still working 78-hour weeks to push?
No.
Like if you're doing that, then like that's pretty clear there. Like you're going above and beyond. And are you surrendering all these decisions to God? Like, are you talking about?
That's probably the bigger thing.
Yeah. Are you talking about like, hey, should I make this acquisition of this next machine? Or like just really practical things. Like, it's not like, I think sometimes we in prayer just only talk about the spiritual things, whatever. Like, no, but like God cares about every aspect of our life. Of our life. And if we surrender it to him and ask and get wisdom and, Anyways, let's read some quotes. My people have forsaken me, the fountain of living waters, and hewed out cisterns for themselves, broken cisterns that can hold no water. That's an old English, hewed out cisterns. Cistern would be like an old, one of those big clay pots they had back in the day that held water. And the verse is saying that they've trying to fill themselves up with broken cisterns. Greed dishonors God by saying that we don't find him trustworthy to provide for us. Instead, we store up, trying to over-provide for ourselves, which I think is good. The second reason greed is deadly is that it brings an army of destruction in its wake. She is the mother of more wickedness. Greed not only blocks love, but breeds death. She gives birth to lying, strife, fighting, quarreling, and even murder. The love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. The kind of heart that finds contentment in money and not in God, explains Piper, is the kind of heart that produces all kinds of evil. Billy Graham goes as far as to say that greed is probably the parent of more evil than all the other sins. So we must put to death covetousness before it deals its death blow to our souls. I mean, you see it and like, yeah, I mean, in so much stuff. I think my dad's even seen it in like on the grave side, like the casket of the dad is being lowered into the grave and the kids are eyeing each other up, for the inheritance, money, like that kind of stuff.
Weird. People, money does weird things to people, man. It makes pretty amazing people pretty strange and do some pretty awful things.
Charles Spurgeon says, it's like it's what a Christian should fear the most is becoming rich. Because it's so dangerous.
Most, like I've said it 100 times, most people can't handle success. They can handle failure almost better than success. Another quote I thought was interesting is, my spending marked by Christian generosity? What does the use of my money say about what makes me most happy? Yeah. Am I collecting for this life? Is my spending explicitly supporting the spread of the gospel and the needs of the church? From a different angle, is my spending, and this is important, so cautious that it keeps me from loving those close to me well? And I have great examples of both in my life, right? People that are on both ends of the spectrum. So I've been really touched by that, where it's like, and people would be like, oh, I'm just being frugal. No, like it's sinful. Like you're uber wealthy, you should be uber generous. Like it's just.
And I also think it doesn't have to be uber generous to like people overseas or just the church and stuff like that. I think it's especially nice when you're uber generous to like friends and family or your neighbor, your like direct neighbor and stuff like that. And not necessarily.
Especially if they're your neighbor.
But and not even necessarily with cash and stuff like that. Like you did it before to me. You gave me a big bag of meat, and I was just like, it was freaking awesome. Like,
was it my first fruits? Was it good meat at least, or you didn't even care? I always feel a bit bad. I'm like, oh man, this is a bad cow.
My best hamburger I've ever made at home was from your ground beef that you shipped me. So
okay, I got some more for you now that I'm thinking about it. Okay, anything else really stand out to you?
Yes. I think the Bible speaks its best for itself. So I'm going to read this verse from 1 Timothy. Godliness with contentment is great gain. For we have brought nothing into this world and we can take nothing out of it. But if we have food and clothing, with these we will be content. That's amazing. Food and clothing. Like that's enough. Like we don't have to have more.
Nobody believes that. Nobody's living like that. None of us are living like that.
Until you're forced to. And then you can really learn it.
Okay.
Like I definitely like going from the money I was making at my last job to then basically making no money, and my spending habits didn't change as quick. And then all of a sudden being like, oh shit, like it definitely was a big wake up call for me. Yep. And it was, what surprised me the most was how happy I could be with how little money I could spend. And I actually found myself to spend more time with my kids, because I actually had a buddy explain this to me. He goes like, when you have the money to go to Science World on a Saturday, whatever, you have to drive for an hour. Your kids are bricking the whole time, drive for an hour back. They don't really like the games there. You're trying to run after them versus staying at home and making a fire in the backyard and just hanging out and stuff like that. Like just simplicity is pretty great. Anyway, I'll keep reading. But those who desire to be rich fall into temptation, into a snare, into many senseless and harmful desires, and plunge the people into ruin and destruction. For the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. It is through this craving that some have wandered away from the faith and pierced themselves with many pangs. I find that interesting. Kind of alluded to it earlier. He's alluding that Christians walk away from the faith because of this craving for more and more and more. So you have someone that's saved, love Jesus, and then wealth hits them, and then they start wandering away. Like that's crazy. That shows you how dangerous it is. Mm-hmm. What do you think about that piece?
I do think that often it's kind of misconstrued to be, hey, money's bad, being wealthy's bad, and I think that we should be praying that we can be that we are wealthy, so we can be generous and bless others. And there's another, and I won't read it because I feel like we're talking about.
Well, you're right. I mean, I think the most influential people in the world are businessmen, because they have the money, and so they decide where the money goes when it goes to politicians or special interest groups and this and that. So that means that Christian business people are definitely the most influential, because their heart is in the spot where God wants it to be, and so you can put that towards good causes. So I very much want to be a promoter of business and stuff like that. But yeah, then do it smart. Just like we find accountability for a lot of guys have accountability for lust. Not looking at porn or all that stuff like that. Have accountability for your finances. Have another brother that knows all your finances.
In our Dutch culture, people just don't do that. They are not that open about it. I don't know why it's so secret. I've never been that secretive, and to be fair, people around me haven't. I've had some great guys that have been pretty open. Yeah. So that's super helpful. You don't learn anything when you live in a vacuum and don't share what's actually going on.
Where are you spending your money on?
Who cares? It shouldn't be that big of a secret.
Yeah. And also, there's that verse in the New Testament, for you had compassion on those in prison, and you joyfully accepted the plundering of your property, since you knew that you yourselves had a better possession and an abiding one. Yeah. Like
nobody's living like that. Do you hear that verse?
If you get persecuted for Jesus and like your business gets taken away or all your crap gets taken away and stuff like that, usually like everyone is fighting in politics so we can keep all of our stuff. Yeah. And these people in the New Testament, they were like, because they follow Jesus and were helping people in prison,
they had everything they needed.
They were joyful when they seen their plundering of their property, because they knew they were doing it for Jesus, which is very, very opposite of.
That's not how I felt when my truck got smashed into. I didn't get there.
At all?
I work a little bit. I mean, whatever. It's all good. I went down to Harlem last night looking for the guy.
Okay. One last quote here, because I think it's important to talk about like the solution to greed, which is the same solution to all sin to a certain degree. But And so, having the abundant grace of God, we cry out against greed. Jesus is my great possession. He is my better possession and abiding one. He is the one whose presence is the promise that serves me, the power of the love of money. He is my treasure hidden in the field, to whom I will gladly sell all I had. Which is alluding to the example of that parable that Jesus talked about, where there's a man walking in the field, and he finds the treasure. Or no, he has to buy the field, but he joyfully
sold everything he had to get the treasure.
Yeah. So, anyways, that is that. Next week is going to be gluttony, which is gluttony for all the fatties out there. No, I'm kidding. It's actually for skinny people too.
Well, it's funny, man. I struggle with it the most I ever have because I'm like so aware now that it's like totally my drug of choice.
Oh, so I had it yesterday after we waited for ever to get our food. When we got our food, I scarfed it down so fast, and I barely enjoyed it.
Like a dog.
And I just felt crappy afterwards, and I was like, oh, that sucks. Anyways. You had a family dinner last Friday.
Oh, that's just about my stuff going on last weekend. Okay, that was home life. That was Saturday night, but I didn't go. Family Life.
What's Family Life?
Family Life is a ministry where, they do that. Most people will know they do the marriage conferences.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do a plug. I don't know how many people will make it to this because I feel like we're rambling on now, but I think we should end after this. But the Family Life does Weekend to Remember marriage conferences where it's a combination of hanging out time, teaching, connecting with your husband or wife. And this is interesting. Well, in the briefcase that got stolen from the cracker, I had like gift certificates, lots of them for Family Life that someone else gave to me to give away. So I got them all back, and I'm offering them to anybody that's going to use them on here. If you're going to use them, I will give you one for free.
And what can you use it for?
For the Family Life Marriage Conference. It's a free gift certificate to go to the conference.
Okay. Otherwise,
it's normally $300 to $400 or something like that. There's still some other costs involved. If you need help with that, I'll help you with that too. But I really believe in the ministry, and Marie and I go once a year to a fundraiser for that ministry.
So reach out to you directly?
Reach out to me directly, and no questions asked. Give you a gift certificate. I got a bunch of them. And anyways, it was with the people that run Family Life and a bunch of other donors. We met for dinner, and it was just interesting. Yeah, it's just a lot of vulnerability there, and it was just awesome. It's encouraging.
Yeah,
I meet with a lot of people that are struggling in their marriages, a lot. And so it's just, I think a healthy balance is great. And it was encouraging to hang out with some people that are doing well.
Yeah, the guys whose house you went to talked to him, and he said he was pretty encouraged by your marriage meeting.
Okay.
He's
got such a good marriage, he doesn't even need to do it.
Well, he told me, he's like, maybe she needed to start doing it.
Okay.
One last thing here. This is a quote I posted on my story yesterday that one of my nieces said to me. Explain this to me in layman's terms. If someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. And it's by Epictetus, philosopher way back then. Yeah. So I'll read it again. If someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation.
Ooh, that's a hard word.
No, I think it's very true, because you're then giving control. Let's say if someone says, like, you made me angry. No, I responded in anger to what you said. We control ourselves and our own emotions. And when we say that person, upset me, then you are giving them power to control you.
It's why resentment and bitterness is so fascinating, because like I always describe it a freedom session, or I would say to somebody, and a lot of people are angry and bitter, it's just natural. We do relationship with people where people are going to piss us off. We're going to be hurt by people. So how we deal with that hurt is so important.
Yeah.
And it could be against former employers, former partners, whatever, just family. And I always say, if you're resentful, which most people are resentful to some degree, some are not. Like some people are pretty easygoing or just are very good at forgiving. But if you are resentful, it is literally like drinking poison, expecting the other person to die.
Yeah.
And ironically, the other person typically isn't even thinking about you. It's amazing how much brain space we give to people that have upset us, right?
Yeah.
So would that be your take on that? Or are you looking at it more from the actual just allowing someone to...
I think both are true.
Okay.
I think it's just more just getting comfortable enough in your own skin as well, that like when, the affirmation or criticism of someone doesn't affect you that much, which, I think is very much like you're giving up control. Otherwise, like if you're also getting really high because you're getting lots of praise, or like getting really down because you're not, like then
you're
that's
just
unhealthy.
Unhealthy.
but I think in other areas as well. Like Nicole actually said it to me when she was doing her recovery stuff, that they said, like, if you don't forgive, like the bitterness will kill you and like eat you up. And so there's like, you know, women that have been cheated on that,
or men
that have been cheated on that. Like, yeah, I mean, it doesn't even have to be cheating. It could be literally anything. Like the bitterness will just eat you alive, and you'll become, I've met those people. And
it's hard when your spouse is perpetually doing the wrong thing.
Yeah.
It's hard. Marriage is hard.
And it's awesome. Me and Nicole have never done better.
Okay.
And it is awesome.
It's a miracle. It's beautiful.
It is a miracle.
Beautiful.
So. Anyways, we're going to go to overtime. If you want to watch overtime, go to patreon.com/furiously curious, or you can watch it on Apple Podcasts.
And for those of you that just refuse to spend the money, stay with it. Just don't give in.
Yeah, don't give
in.
Yeah.
Just keep wondering what's being said. It's entertaining.
You'll feel better about yourself not giving in.
Yeah, you will. You need to stay strong. And I talk to these people all the time. They let me know that they'd really like to, but they just cannot support the cause. Yeah. Totally fair. Totally get it. I have all kinds of weird things
Skip
like that.
Skip the Pride chapter 2 when you read the Killjoys book. Anyways,
the same people are too cheap to buy this book. They're just gleaning what little quotes we did give. Some people have bought it, and some people have really enjoyed it.
Good.
I think it's
awesome. We didn't have a show sponsor. Do you want to plug somebody? Oh, yes.
I do.
Okay.
Oh no, go ahead. No, you can. I got mine next.
No,
time.
I got mine next week.
The show sponsor is Julius Maljaars.
That's what I was gonna do. Yeah. I was gonna wait next week till I had my hat.
Okay. Did he give you a hat?
Yeah, he gave me a cool hat, nice black hat.
He didn't give me one.
Okay, so Julius Maljaars is a realtor, local realtor here in the Fraser Valley.
Quite a few first-time home buyers.
Yeah, he is awesome. He'll hustle. He'll work hard. I'm not just saying that. And
he runs around like a dog in heat. Just giving her.
Oh, okay. So if you're looking for that,
go hard. It's not a bad. I said that as a positive trait, but now I really ruined my credibility. Have a great week.